Hello and welcome to Persuasion and Presence for Program and Project Managers. We're in Week 1, Module 3, and we're going to take a closer look at how emotions help us in creating compelling and persuasive messages for our team, our stakeholders, and our project customers and program customers. This may not surprise you, but I have another classic advertising example. I like advertising, and I like the way advertising mixes and matches the three components of Aristotle's rhetorical triad. So if you want to, you can probably Google this pretty quickly. This is an ad for Michelin tires, and judging from the way it looks, it's probably 70s, 80s, and you've all seen print magazines, of course, and this is a 2-page print ad. And if you lay out the magazine flat, you can see this advertisement just reaching over the 2 pages. And on the first page, on the first half of the page, you have a Michelin tire and you have a baby resting their hand on the Michelin tire. That's the first page, and that's just a big dramatic image right there. On the second page, you see in bold white letters, Michelin, because so much is riding on your tires. Now think about that for a second. What is this ad telling us? What is it trying to invoke in us? So you have this picture of a baby with their hand resting on the tire, and you have Michelin talking about how much is riding on your tires. So I bet you can guess the emotional impact and what Michelin is trying to communicate here, because the rest of the ad is in the lower right-hand corner, and it's a bunch of text that you can barely read if you have it all blown up like I do for the 2 pages. So clearly, the intent of this communication is the emotion. Oh, I have kids. I really care about my kids. I really want to make sure they're safe. I better buy Michelin tires so we won't get into an accident. That's the implied message. I'm not sure about the logic of that. We can all question that all day, but you can see the emotional impact of that ad. So we know that print ads are not cheap. And there's a lot of money, and especially in a major magazine, and doing 2 pages, and half your ad is a picture of the baby with their hand resting on the tire. So why would you spend so much money and time and effort unless you knew emotions paid off? And why do emotions pay off? Why do emotions affect us so much in being persuasive? It's based on our brain structure. We have a lot of our brain devoted to emotional processing. We have one major component in our brain, the amygdala, which is 2 pieces that look like almonds. They're in the center of your brain, and they sit on top of something called the hippocampus. And the amygdala is the emotional center for your brain. And I'm really simplifying it here, but basically it scans your environment for threats to you, and it makes you react to those threats. So it gets the heart pumping, get the adrenaline going. The amygdala makes sure that you're safe in your environment. So it's like your home alarm, okay? The amygdala also helps you process emotions and helps you tag memories for long-term storage in your hippocampus. So when you have memories that are in your long-term storage, they have to have an emotional tag, which is given to them by the amygdala. The amygdala also works with the prefrontal cortex, which is the executive part of your brain. That's right in the front of your brain, and it deals with logic and executive decision making and such. And you need that part. You need the emotions to help you with the processing of logical statements too, because it helps you understand what's important to you and what's not important to you. So all these 3 structures work together to help you become persuaded, and also to help you make good decisions.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying this free lesson from the University of Maryland's Project Management Center for Excellence. If you want to check out more lessons just like this one, click the link in the description below where you'll be able to go to our website on executive project management. There, you can find edX courses, professional short courses where you can learn from an instructor like me, as well as request custom team training for you and your organization. All right, let's get back to the lesson, and I'll see you at the end.
Let me give you a practical tool to help you frame emotional arguments persuasively. There's a whole theory of knowledge called prospect theory, and it's mathematically dense, but it basically says that people feel losses more keenly than they do feel gains. In other words, and they've done a lot of experiments with this, many people will skip the chance to gain $200 if they're going to lose $100. In some cases, they may even skip the chance of gaining $300 if they might have a chance of losing $100. So people don't want to lose as much as they want to gain. And this can be very powerful for you when you're constructing your persuasive emotional arguments. So let's think back about our ad. All right. I'm going to pay so much for Michelin tires, and they're not cheap. I could probably get cheaper tires out there in the market, but I don't want to lose my child. And that's the argument that Michelin was making. Do you want to spend a little money now? That's a little bit of a pain, but you gain so much. You gain your child's life. And that's kind of how we frame these persuasive emotional arguments. We, of course, have logic backing them up. Sometimes the logic is a little bit lacking, maybe like in that Michelin ad. But we do have some logic, but we have the more emotional impact there to help us spice up our arguments. Emotions also play a vital part in helping make your arguments memorable. Let's take a look at a block diagram of our memory. So at the first part, we have sensory input. We have all these things streaming into our eyes, into our ears, into our mouth, our nose. All our senses are engaged in many cases with an experience. And as the information flows into what we call our sensory memory, it's buffered there. Basically, we are processing it. We're making sense of the sound, the sights, all the stuff that's happening with us through our senses. And then the information that's in the sensory memory gets funneled into our short-term memory. And our short-term memory can only remember 5 plus or minus 2 chunks of information. Now, chunks of information can be a single digit, or it can be full equations. It's however we've trained ourselves to remember things. And anyway, so when we have these chunks of information coming in here, and we got to determine whether we want to keep that information or we want to drop it, this is where our emotions come into play. So in the amygdala, remember we talked about how it sits on top of the hippocampus. It puts an emotional tag on the memory, and that helps put it into the long-term memory. So our emotions help us understand, is this information important? Will it help me in my survival? Will it help me prevent a loss? Will it help me get a gain? And if it does, I've got a little emotional tag. I stick on it, and then I put it in my long-term memory. So that's why when you're doing arguments and you're thinking about the logic, also think about the emotional impact of those logical arguments. And think, as we talked about in our tool, our prospect theory tool, our loss aversion, how can I help my people understand the gains that they will receive or minimize the losses that they might encounter? And that gives me the emotional tag to help me make my logical argument emotionally persuasive.
Hey there, did you enjoy that lesson as much as I did? If you did, go ahead and give us a like. If you want to see another one, go ahead and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, put them below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Moreover, is there somebody in your life who really needs this lesson right now? If so, go ahead and share it with them. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. Now, we look forward to seeing you in the next lesson where you can learn even more from the University of Maryland Project Management Center for Excellence. Thanks so much.